Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us again today. We are starting a couple of minutes early as we begin to think the teachings into the minds of humanity. Humanity taking the first initiation. We consider ideals to dissipate glamour and dispel illusion, and eventually reveal the presence. We come together in service. Om Mani Padme Hum. In a treatise on white magic, Master Dwal Kul tells us, every externalized idea is possessed of form, animated by desire, and created by the power of the mind. The desire plane is the one upon which the mind imposes its conceptions in order to produce the idea incarnate, to clothe the idea in form. It is therefore the gestation ground. This, as we have discussed in previous sessions, is the ground in which humanity is now focused, the astral plane, and thinking and polarized on that gestation ground. The mind previously has been the recipient of the archetypal idea as grasped and visualized by the soul. And as we discussed last week, these archetypal ideas have been developed on the astral plane, and through the process of the next 1,000 to 2,000 years, as the hierarchy is externalized and as the Christ appears on earth, these archetypal ideas that have been placed on the astral plane are distorted now and must be removed. And this is the work of the Christ. In its turn, the soul is the recipient of the formula as presented to it in the world of ideas. So we have the presented idea, the perceived idea, and the formulated idea, and the idea working out into manifestation. He goes on to say, such ideas are contacted usually at first in the form of vague perceptions or remote prophecies. When contacted by churchmen of any of the world religions, these ideas normally receive a far too literal and therefore misleading interpretation. This has been responsible for much misery in the world. The scientific method safeguards the scientist from this type of error. Part of his task, Master Dwal Kul's task within his ashram, is to train us as disciples to recognize the new, emerging ideas and to translate those into the concepts which will condition human thinking in the cycle just ahead. The second stage of this training involves the cultivation of a correct sense of timing. This will prevent the disciple from taking precipitative or premature action. It will give the disciple the key to the real meaning of the eternal now, the synthesis of past, present, and future. The disciple will next be taught the art of precipitation, or the mode of conveying these ideas to the minds of the intellectuals in the world. Through these concrete and receptive minds, the presented ideas are transformed into ideals and then are brought to the attention of humanity. The place and the responsibility of the intelligentsia is not yet fully appreciated, nor have they truly shouldered their task or recognized its defined importance. Their work and their presentation of the ideal to the masses of humanity everywhere does not concern the disciple. The disciple's work, our work, lies primarily with the advanced, pioneering thinker and not with the demanding masses. I would ask you to remember this. I brought these forward. We considered these words of Master Dwal Kul probably 2 years ago. And it is important for us to remember this field that we are entering into, this field of ideas, and the role that we play now in this particular age and stage, in the new age as it moves forward. So remembering that the purpose for which humanity exists, the objective before the group of world mystics and workers, and the ideal set before the individual aspirant are the same as in the individual meditation. And that is the achieving of that focused attention and mental quiet, wherein reality can be contacted, the true and the beautiful can be registered, divine purpose can be recorded, and it becomes possible to transmit to the phenomenal form, which is our form upon the physical plane that we are so attached to. Physical, astral, and mental bodies are personalities. To transmit to us in this form the needed energy whereby the subjective realization can be materialized. So with those thoughts from the Master in mind, let us begin, as we begin each week, with the protective formula using the sign of the cross of divinity. Touching the forehead, as a soul I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me, touching the center of the chest. If you're vocalizing, will you please mute yourself? I take my stand within the light, the left eye. I work, and from that point, I never move, the right eye. Using the protective formula, we establish ourselves in relationship, the relationship of Manas, the left eye, the light, and Buddhi, the right eye, the point from which we never move on the horizontal plane. We enter into a beam of focused light, revealing a greater light and illumining the way to the center of the light, using the vertical axis. As the soul working in light, darkness cannot touch us. And we use this vertical light to direct our way. We now merge with the group present and with all of our current service groups, bringing them into this circle of light in heart, mind, and heart in the head. And as advanced disciples do, we will act as if we are in our own being, linking head, heart, and throat centers in a triangle, and visualize the great triangle of the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, and the Lord Buddha, imbuing the center, the heart of our planetary logos, the hierarchy, vocalized in the Christ consciousness. And that light shining upon us. And we sound the mantra of light. Radiance we are and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meeting and the subtle world of all glamour, which is Maya, glamour, and illusion. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. We ended our last session with this consideration, thinking through from the highest level the divine ideals that become divine ideas that come through the higher intuition of the Buddhic plane, requiring for those initiates comprehension of the four sounds to create impressions and bring ideas into the minds of all disciples and initiates as thoughts and thought forms. And at this time, to meet in group formation to establish right human relations, that we may have a transparent and clear as glass astral field and tap the emotional idealism of humanity. So let us today look at some of the basic teachings related to each of these aspects of vibration that are on each plane in which we are told by Master DK thought exists. Vibration, light, sound, color, and motion. For these are continuously drawing us up into closer relation with the higher or next expansion of consciousness. And just a reminder for all of these that these again directly relate the path of initiation along the Antakarana, from the first initiation which humanity is involved with at this time up to the sixth initiation of the Christ, all connected through the Antakarana. And we are given this chart of the constitution of man, showing us those planes where thought exists in its different formulations. Ben, would you read for us this sloka? Slokas, 3 of them, excerpts from Agni Yoga Heart.
Motion. Travels and changes of residence serve to stir up the memory. Many small seeds with great potential are awakened in the memory, like pieces of a kaleidoscope that form new combinations. So, motion is able to provide evidence of a perfect, subtle materiality. Moreover, we need to feel how we should offer ourselves to the highest hierarchy so that our essence might be of benefit to cosmic motion. Certainly, motion may not be physical at all, but spiritual. For as you know, There are no boundaries between these domains. A simple motion may evoke a memory, but for the attainment of illumination, special conditions in the subtle world are necessary. It may be noted with surprise that sudden illumination does not depend upon rational conditions. Illumination descends when one least expects it. We are all trans-temporal beings, propelled to ascent like heavenly bodies rushing onward.
Pause briefly and consider yourself this trans-temporal being and all of us in group formation as these trans-temporal beings propelled to ascent, evolving motion on the higher planes like heavenly bodies rushing onward. Consider the benefits, the impacts, and progress that is achieved through the motion or travel as we meditate and serve in the various esoteric groups. We are all involved in the motion, the ascent through meditation, the motion through the fields and levels of thought through our study, and the motion of bringing humanity to ascent through our service of thinking the teachings into the minds of humanity. Visualize the rainbow bridge. We are part of the new group of world servers. In every motion, we have the ability to bring the qualities of soul through the motion of that triangle of light, the head, heart, and throat. Joy, patience, humility, life, group life, national life, and the life of service, compassion, love, soul love, and group love, tolerance, spiritual courage, fearlessness, and creative intelligence. Let us project a beam of light as members of the new group of world servers. Beam our light along the words of power of the second ray across the rainbow bridge. I see the greatest light. We're projecting these qualities on behalf of humanity. We stand with the new group. Paradoxically, we're told that colors don't actually exist, that there are no colors. Apples and fire engines are not red, the sky and sea are not blue, and no person is objectively black or white. The universe has light in different wavelengths, and color vision depends upon how our brain perceives the light of the different wavelengths. So technically, colors are the illusion created by our brain, but we use colors to tap the creative imagination. And through the use of the color concepts, we are tapping something deep in humanity. And in sounding the words of power across the rainbow bridge, lifting and aiding humanity to begin to assume the role of humanity, to awaken soul consciousness in all as we enter this new age. Let us consider sound. Ellen.
Sound, Sloka 522. The language of the subtle world has no need of words, although it may possess them. Its expression lies in straight knowledge, in Agni Yoga, the so-called intuition. It is the very high energy which manifests from all the accumulated spiritual treasures in us. Straight knowledge. Its expression also lies in transmission of the subtlest feelings. Thus, the subtle world must not disturb the music of the spheres by generating disorderly resonances. We should not be surprised about any of this, for even in the corporeal world, hearts resonating in harmony transmit a great deal to each other through the language of the heart. Let this language be a constant reminder about the potential of the subtle world.
Again, tuning into the triangle of head, heart, and throat center. We tune to the three notes, creating the egoic chord, and resonate those notes into the group note, harmony transmitting this resonance to each other through the language of the heart.
What is the sound? The creative point of tension, a tension achieved by a planetary logos when he responds to the sound of the ineffable name and breathes it forth in his turn in three great sounds which made one sound on his own plane of expression, thus creating the manifested world, the impulse towards the unfoldment of consciousness, and the influence of life itself. This is the sound. The OM, rightly sounded, releases the soul from the realm of glamour and of enchantment. It is the sound of liberation, the great note of resurrection, and of the raising of humanity to the secret place of the Most High, when all other words and sounds have failed.
What is the sound? The mass of aspirants and of disciples are today learning the meaning of the Om, which is not the word made flesh, but the word released from form and expressing itself as soul spirit, and not as body soul spirit. The sound of the Om and the sound itself are all related to vibration and to its differing and varied effects. The secret of the law of vibration is progressively revealed as people learn to sound forth the word in its three aspects. Students would also do well to ponder on the distinction between the breath and the sound, between the process of breathing and of creating directed vibratory activity. One is related to time and the other to space, and they are distinct from each other. And, as the old commentary puts it, quote, the sound, the final and yet initiating sound, concerns that which is neither time nor space. It lies outside the manifested all, the source of all that is, and yet is not. End quote. The chord of the ego. From the Tibetan master, quote, when I use the term reciprocal vibration, what do I mean? I mean the adaptation of the personality or lower self to the ego or higher self, the dominating of the personality ray by the ray of the ego, and the combining of their tones. I mean the blending of the primary color of the higher self with the secondary hue of the lower self until beauty is achieved. At first there is dissonance and discord, a clashing of the colors, and a fight between the higher and the lower. But as time progresses, and later with the aid of the master, harmony of color and tone is produced. Parentheses, a synonymous matter, end parentheses, until eventually you will have the basic note of matter, the major third of the aligned personality, the dominant fifth of the ego, followed by the full chord of the monad or the spirit.
Margie.
If the above is true of the Om and of its group effects, it is indefinitely more true of the great invocation. Words of power, and this is also true of the Om, are all of second ray origin. This is the ray of manifestation of consciousness. They are, therefore, intended for soul use, because the soul is the expression of the second aspect of divinity, and only the soul can really employ these words and sounds, and thus produce the desired results, which are always in line with the divine plan. It is frequently forgotten that they must be used by the soul in a dynamic manner, involving the serious recognition of the will aspect. The great invocation, the Om, and all such words of power must go forth from the soul, whose nature is love and whose purpose is solely group good, backed by, or occultly propelled forth, to use a translation of an almost untranslatable occult idea, by the dynamic will aspect, and carried outwards as an integrated thought form upon a stream of living, illumined mental substance. This process, therefore, brings into activity the will, the love, and the intelligence of the man who is using these words and formulas.
So let us pause briefly and consider this use of the dynamic will aspect carried outwards as an integrated thought form upon a stream of living, illumined mental substance. And this being brought into activity, all three aspects, the will, the love, and the intelligence of each of us who is using these words and formulas. Martine.
What results, therefore, when the word is correctly sounded by a group of people rightly intermingled? It attracts the attention of certain of the devas or angels, whose work lies with the bodies of men, and enables them to do that work with greater exactitude and make context that later will be of use.
So let us endeavor to be conscious and mindful in the way in which we use the Om and the words of power. And the dynamic result when sounded by a group rightly intermingled. What results there? Martine, will you continue, please?
In using the great invocation, the Christ within, as the controller of the individual life, can bring that battle, personality and soul, to an end. The aspirant can emerge clear-sighted and unafraid. The appearance of the Christ among men will do the same thing for humanity as a whole. Not in any vicarious sense, but through the livingness of his presence, stimulating the Christ principle in every human heart. The divine Christ in the human heart can be expressed in many different departments of human living, in politics, in the arts, in economic expression, and in true social living, in science, and in religion.
All of these involving those in the new group of world servers. So in considering the 5 sentences which are given below that are forming what DK calls the mandate of the great invocation, and that was laid out in the first invocation that was given in the 1930s. He points out in externalization of the hierarchy some underlying and basic ideas, one of which is the Christ, the embodiment of the love and the will of God, and the agent of the spirit of peace, can also be contacted, and humanity can be trained to appropriate this extra planetary type of energy. So what is this mandate? Let the forces of light bring illumination to all mankind. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May men of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of all men be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. These 5 sentences, the mandate for the Christ's coming, Christ the embodiment of love and will, the love and will of God, the Christ principle, the agent of the spirit of peace. Appropriating extraplanetary energies, the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, and the Lord Buddha. As we've read before, this presence of the Christ coming first into consciousness onto the astral plane. So let us consider, how does the emotional body, this great whole of humanity, the solar plexus center currently, relate now to this mandate given in 1935? What is necessary for the humanity as a whole to move forward and leave astral polarization, and through our thought processes and the use of the Om and the use of the great invocations, move humanity forward. Let us consider light.
The quality and major characteristic of the soul is light. It should be borne in mind that the soul body is constructed of pure white light, whilst the light out of which the etheric body is made is golden. Light is vibration, and through the measurement of vibration is fixed the grading of the scholars. Hence, nothing can prevent a man's progress forward if he but attends to the purification of his vehicles. The light within will shine forth with ever greater clarity as the refining process goes on, until when atomic matter predominates, great will be the glory of that inner man. We are all graded, therefore, if it may be so expressed, according to the magnitude of the light, according to the rate of vibration, according to the purity of the tone and the clarity of the color. Who our teacher is depends therefore upon our grading. Similarity of vibration holds the secret. We are frequently told that when the demand is forceful enough, the teacher will appear. When we build in the right vibrations and attune ourselves to the right key, nothing can prevent our finding the master. At the third initiation, termed sometimes as the transfiguration, the entire personality is flooded with light from above. It is only after this initiation that the monad is definitely guiding the ego, pouring his divine life evermore into the prepared and cleansed channel.
This particular excerpt is particularly important as we begin to consider working through the technique of the presence. For the presence is, in a way, the vehicle of the monad. And as we move from using the technique of light, which focuses on the dissipation of glamour, dispelling those clouds and fogs from the astral field, the technique of the presence takes us to fully utilizing the highest light that we can attain and attempting to move into relationship with the monadic impulse, knowing full well that we have not yet achieved the third initiation, when the entire personality is flooded with light from above, and the first real guidance from the monad is available to the personality and the ego as that integrated soul personality appears. So let us continue to act as if, and continue to begin to try to understand the role that we play as a group and bring in to our use of the techniques the guidance of those from the other side of the veil and the guidance of those standing with us who truly have passed the third initiation. Mary Gail.
Light. It must be remembered that the entire solar system, with all that is included therein, is expressing itself in terms of light, and that the process of initiation might therefore be regarded as one in which the different points of light, or human sparks, are stimulated, their radiance and temperature increased, and the sphere of influence of each light extended in radius.
So create the visualization of the spark of light, that highest point in your own being, and stand as that spark, as the observer. And from that spark, the powering of the light from above, from the higher soul plane, Buddhic, and the first hints of monadic presence, and bring that into the radiance of the light of your soul. And see the sphere of influence expanding, and then connecting to the circle of lights in our group. And with that powerful, radiant, magnified light within the group, concentrated into the center of the group. And that radiant light, the combined light, the three lights, the light of brain and mind, united with soul light, into the center of the group, and that light growing and expanding and used in the technique of light. And now, a great sense of the greater soul light of all the groups, connecting the beacons, radiating even a greater light. And then noting the magnetic interplay of the great light of the hierarchy. Drawing us across the rainbow bridge. And the true light, the first knowledge and experience of monadic light coming through the presence.
How does Master DK define and explain vibration? Vibration is the result of subjective impulse and makes it its appeal to the subjective consciousness through impact upon whatever may be understood as substance. This impact is transmitted direct to the inner life, and in due turn is retransmitted to substance in the form of recognition or realization. An analogous process may be studied in the nerves reaction of the physical frame and their alliance with the brain consciousness. As will be seen in the three worlds of man's emprise, man will work as a creator and will follow a similar procedure. His thought forms will be constructed of mental matter chosen specifically because it vibrates to the same type of vibration as the idea that is seeking embodiment. And these forms will persist, as does the logoic thought form, the solar system, for just as long as the factor of will or dynamic vitality continues to hold it together.
So in our visualization, we are at a point of affirming that which we recognize. What are our recognitions? We recognize our achieved alignment. We recognize the soul, the source of love wisdom. We recognize the hierarchy. We recognize our group progress. We recognize the need to vibrate to the same resonance as the idea seeking embodiment. And so in approaching the presence, we not only align, but we recognize the power of the will, the group will, and its dynamic vitality to reach across the rainbow bridge and touch the Buddhic plane.
A statement to the group made by the soul, the disciple. In the center of the will of God, we stand. Naught shall deflect our will from God's will. We implement that will by love. We turn towards the field of service. As the triangle divine, we work out that will within the square and serve humanity.
Surely.
As we advance together into a deeper understanding of the new astrology, the science of relations, let us, as a group, build our knowledge as a group, engender understanding, and eventually comprehending our role in service to humanity, awakening soul consciousness through our service always practiced in group formation, establishing and confirming that which Master DK calls a feeling of shared responsibility, a recognition of group assets and group richness, again, using a peculiar word, and a realization of the possibility which may greatly strengthen each and all of you.
So let's review what Master DK tells us about the use of invocation, which we do in all of our meditations together. And the objective of these processes of invocation is threefold: to invoke the soul of humanity and to bring about its freer expression upon the physical plane. And that this is brought about in two ways: the stimulation of the souls of men everywhere by the increased inflow of the Christ principle of love, which will express itself in world understanding, goodwill, cooperation, and peace. And this is the goal of the daily meditation of the World Servers Network. And then the setting up of a vibration within humanity itself of such potency that it will magnetically attract a response from the waiting, watching hierarchy and bring about a much closer and likewise conscious rapport between the two planetary centers, the hierarchy and humanity. The first stage of evoking the response to love and understanding in human hearts and minds as a result of the invocation of the Christ and of the Christ principle, which is the second sentence of the third dispensation of the great invocation. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. So we'll continuously come back as we move forward together with this little, not small, actually quite important and large tabulation of the revelations and the stages of initiation and the impact at each level. So in relation to humanity, we're working toward the partial lifting of the veil of Maya, the technique of indifference, in which there's the recognition of the soul as the true identity. Those of us using the technique of light to dissipate glamour, so that there is understanding of the path of purification of service. And now as we move to use the technique of the presence to dispel illusion, that with the third initiation, there will be revelation, the true revelation of the spiritual triad, the true self. So we will continuously, as we move forward together, review these techniques. But let's make sure that we ponder on them briefly today, each one in its turn. In relation to Maya, we use the technique of indifference. Catherine, are you still with us to read?
The technique of indifference. By means of this technique, Maya is ended. For the control of the purified astral vehicle is consciously and technically brought into activity, producing the freeing of the energies of the etheric body from the control of matter or force substance, and bringing men in large numbers onto the probationary path. Where there is divine indifference to the call or pull of matter, then inspiration becomes possible. This technique is related to karma yoga in its most practical form and the use of matter with complete impersonality. The goal of this technique is the first initiation, which enables man to live a life inspired by God. Inspiration is the applied power of transmission. From Glamour World Problem.
So we ponder on the challenge of using matter with complete impersonality. This is partially achieved at the first initiation and should be completely achieved at the third initiation.
The technique of light. By means of this technique, the illumined mind assumes control over the astral or emotional body and dissipates glamour. When light pours in, glamour fades out. Illumination dominates, and the vision of reality can be seen. This technique is related to Raja Yoga, and its goal is the second initiation. It produces ability to tread the path of discipleship and enables the man to live a life enlightened by divinity. Illumination is the applied power of transformation.
So as we use the technique of light, we are beginning to develop this power, this applied power of transformation. Through the technique of indifference, it is the applied power of transmission. It's an important distinction, between the two techniques. Just always reminding ourselves we are dealing with thought on all the levels. So you may consider which level of thought, discrimination, leading to inspiration, the applied power of transmission, spiritual discernment, leading to illumination, the applied power of transformation. Let's look at the third. Margie.
The technique of the presence. By means of this technique, the soul assumes control of the integrated personality and of its relations, horizontal and vertical. This technique involves the unfolding of the flower of the intuition, dispelling illusion, revealing the angel, indicating the presence, and opening up to the disciple the world of ideas and the door of the higher initiations. Through the disciple's grasp and application of these divine ideas or seed thoughts, he becomes an initiate, and the third initiation becomes possible as an immediate goal. The intuition is the applied power of transfiguration. This technique is related to the little-known yoga called Agni Yoga, or the yoga of fire.
So as we approach the use of the technique of the presence, we need to keep in mind that we are beginning to deal with this little-known yoga called Agni Yoga. We're dealing with the yoga of fire.
The issues at stake are clear to all right-thinking people. Intolerance and an intense national pride and self-satisfaction can blind men to the facts of the case today. But there are enough people thinking clearly to make the future of right decision more probable than at any other than at any other previous time in history of the race.
Would you continue?
Sound. You, my young friends, who have approached art and creation, you should be able to utilize your gifts as a condensation of your forces, for sound and color, thought and rhythm are the foundations of the universe and of our existence. Sound and color, knowledge and creation are the chalice of Amrita, the chalice of immortality. Absorb all the sounds, all the colors, all the rhythms from the fathomless source of space. These finest vibrations, consciously absorbed, will refine your receptivity and your thought.
The words from Helena Rarick, who received the transmissions from Master Moria and brought it through Agni Yoga.
Man only hears the distant sound and knows it not for what it is. The disciple hears the sound and sees its form. The one who stands for the third time upon the mountaintop hears a clear note and knows it as his own, as ours, as yours, and yet the note which none have sounded forth. Rule 7 for applicants. Let the disciple turn his attention to the enunciating of those sounds which echo in the hall where walks the master. Let him not sound the lesser notes which awaken vibration within the halls of Maya.
We work always in group formation. And we close today with this advice from Master DK. Keep silence and the light will enter in.